coming up with this information that it admits it did warn the proper authorities before September 11th of a hijacking plot that was linked to Osama bin Laden. We are looking into this.
Tonight, the White House is confirming a report that the CIA director told President Bush before September 11th that there was a chance that someone connected to Osama bin Laden might hijack a U.S. airliner.
Now, there was no suspicion that they would take those hijacked airplanes and ram them into buildings.
Well, that's not so. As a matter of fact, even Al-Qaeda reports from the CIA back in the mid-90s indicated that they intended to take a plane and ram it into the Eiffel Tower in Paris.
And Murad had discussed with Youssef the possibility of crashing a plane into an American government building.
He will board any American commercial aircraft pretending to be an ordinary passenger. He will hijack said aircraft, control its cockpit and dive it at the CIA headquarters. It is simply a suicidal mission that he is willing to execute.
There's no question that the Intelligence Committee and the Congress and the administration had reason to suspect that hijackings were a possibility. I don't think anybody knew that it would possibly be used as a missile aimed into a high-rise building.
There's suspicious activity there, and the handwritten notes of at least one FBI agent indicated that they were speculating, they were brainstorming. They said, well, maybe this guy's out to ram a plane into the World Trade Center. You kind of put all that together and you start to get a picture.
There was no time, there was no place, there was no method of attack. It simply said these are people who train and seem to talk possibly about hijackings. And had this president known of something more specific or known that a plane was going to be used as a missile, he would have acted on it.
The vice president deciding to add a paragraph to his speech, echoing those comments from Dr. Rice, saying any suggestion that this president had any specific knowledge about the September 11th attack is ludicrous.
Wilderness was one of the first independent news sources to raise the issue of government foreknowledge.
First of all, it's imperative to note that the Bush administration is absolutely and totally lying when it says, golly gee, we had no idea that aircraft could have been used as weapons of mass destruction to attack the United States. We know, of course, that Bush had clear briefings that Al-Qaeda might be hijacking airplanes, but gee, the press forgot to tell you that on October the 24th through the 26th of 2000, the Pentagon held detailed drills practicing for an airliner being crashed into the Pentagon. The major media didn't tell you that at the G8 summit in Genoa, Italy in July of 2001, just 2 months before the attacks, all the airspace was closed off. The summit conference area was ringed with anti-aircraft guns, and the Los Angeles Times reported clearly that Egyptian intelligence and other intelligence services were afraid that hijacked aircraft would be crashed into the G8 summit to kill President Bush. It's a total lie that the administration had no knowledge. It's also a lie that the administration had no advance warning of the attacks. Intelligence reports from France, from Germany, from Russia, from Egypt, from Jordan, all of which taken together show clearly that the United States government had been warned that in the week of September the 9th, commercial airliners would be hijacked and crashed into the World Trade Center, and that ultimately, through other warnings, that they would involve aircraft from American and United Airlines. Those are very specific warnings, and that's just what we know now to this day.
Best in the world. And clearly, something yesterday took place in New York that was not foreseen, that we had no specific information about.
Like most Americans, Thompson initially didn't question the Bush administration's first statements about the attacks. The administration consistently maintained that there were no warnings or specific threats.
No specific threat involving really a domestic operation or involving what happened, obviously, the city's airliner and so forth.
There were no warning signs that I'm aware of that would indicate this type of operation in the country.
I first became interested in 9/11 around mid-2002, right around the time that President Bush's now famous August 6th PDB became leaked to the press.
President Bush was told in August that Osama bin Laden might be planning an attack involving the hijacking of U.S. aircraft.
Dan, it was a revelation that the White House had no intention of making public, and officials spent the entire day in full damage control.
I don't think anybody could have predicted that they would try to use an airplane as a missile, a hijacked airplane as a missile.
Nobody in our government, at least, and I don't think the prior government that could envision flying airplanes into buildings on such a massive scale.
His interest piqued. Thompson began to search for news stories that might help him determine exactly how aware the White House had been of al-Qaeda's desire to use planes as weapons. He was quickly able to compile a wealth of examples that any journalist should have been able to find. One of the earliest dates back to 1995. It was codenamed Operation Bojinka, a terrorist plot to use commercial planes to attack U.S. targets.
Ramzi Youssef, the bomb maker responsible for the 1993 World Trade Center bombing, had fled to the Philippines, where police discovered his bomb factory. Youssef again escaped, but his accomplice was arrested and spilled the chilling plot.
Operation Bojinka, a plan to blow up multiple airliners over the Pacific, was heavily reported, but Thompson noted most journalists failed to mention the second aspect of the plot. Only CNN International dug deeper into this story.
In confidential documents from the Philippines obtained by CNN, the plan was clear. He will board any American commercial aircraft, control its cockpit, and dive it at the CIA headquarters. Other buildings targeted the Pentagon and the World Trade Center. And the FBI, using the Philippine documents, did check the 4 flight schools named there, but found no evidence of any other planned terror attacks.
Only NBC reported a stunning confession by a man allegedly trained by bin Laden.
It was over a year before 9/11, a Pakistani-British man told the FBI an incredible tale, that he'd been trained by followers of Osama bin Laden to hijack airplanes, and he confessed he was now in America to carry out an attack.
Khan was recruited into al-Qaeda at a British mosque, then flown to Lahore, Pakistan for hijack training in a Mach 767 cockpit before being sent to America, where he was told he would hijack a plane from JFK and fly it into a building.
I told him before the 9/11, about more than a year, we hijacking in America airline.
Khan claims he got cold feet. Instead of meeting his contact, he slipped away, gambled away all his money, and in fear turned himself in and confessed.
I've been to Pakistan. I know about this hijacking, something going on.
NBC News has learned Khan passed not 1, but 2 polygraphs. A former FBI official says Newark agents believed him, but word came from headquarters, quote, return him to London and forget about it.
Access to this exclusive footage from NBC is now restricted. July 2001, according to 60 Minutes, Egyptian intelligence received a report that 20 al-Qaeda had slipped into the U.S. and 4 of them had trained on Cessnas.
Now, to the Egyptians, pilots of small planes didn't sound terribly alarming, but they passed on the message to the CIA anyway, fully expecting Washington to request more information. The request never came.
In fact, Thompson compiled stories about 14 different nations that had warned the U.S. prior to 9/11.
You could have one story that comes out on the front page and another story that comes out on page B12. And what I found is that many times the story that comes out on B12 is more important than the story that comes out on the front page.
March. Italian intelligence gave information to the U.S. based on their wiretap of an al-Qaeda cell in Milan. The LA Times and the Washington Post said the wiretaps warned of brothers going to the United States and a massive strike involving aircraft. August. According to Moroccan and French newspapers, an intelligence agent reported that bin Laden's men were preparing large-scale operations in New York in the summer or fall of 2001. The agent was then called to the U.S. to report this information directly. August. Britain warned 3 times of an al-Qaeda attack in the U.S., the final warning specifying multiple airplane hijackings. According to Britain's Sunday Herald, the warning was passed on to President Bush a short time later.